Pinkertons Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre Terre. It is not intended for children.
Make them pay. That's what I was thinking as I visited the scene of Cynthia's murder. It beat through my head like a mantra, over and over, overpowering every other thought. Make them pay. Make them pay. Cynthia was dead, of course. Shot through the middle of her forehead at point-blank range. There were no witnesses. It was the middle of the week and the middle of the day. Most people were at work, and the ones who weren't outside to see anything. Did they hear anything? Nobody reported it. I wonder if the killer had used magic to make the gun quiet. Or maybe just a silencer. Silencers aren't what cop shows make them out to be. But if you're not nearby, it could be enough to make the shot background noise anyway. The police promised to do what they could. I knew better. The cold, hard truth of the matter? Cynthia was dead because of me. Could I be sure of this? Well, I had no proof, but what are the odds? My list of enemies was getting awfully long. Her pencil-necked computer nerd husband certainly wasn't the type to make enemies. Cynthia could rub people the wrong way, but she liked to be popular. She certainly wouldn't be the sort to make enemies, at least not like this. That left me. But why? That was the real question. I wasn't with Cynthia, I was with Violet. If you want to hurt me, she's who you would target. Well, was with Violet. We broke up. I can't talk about it now. There was little evidence, no cameras, no witness, no sign of breaking and entering. There was no message left for me, nothing. I mean, what could I do? Where should I start? Make them pay. Make them pay. But who? Well, that was easy. I need to go down the list. Who were my enemies? Who might want to do this to me? Everyone was on the table. This sort of MO didn't fit Morgana. But then I'm not so sure there was anything off the table for her if it meant hurting me. That crazy British time traveler is still out there. He has to have it out for me. And there was the magician, Alexander the Great. I had to go one at a time. And there was one guy who made the top of the list. Me. Or rather, another me. A me that had gone bad. My doppelganger hated me. I knew that much. And I knew that he, was the sort of person who would use a gun, and who knew how much killing Cynthia would hurt me. I still don't know why Cynthia was targeted instead of Violet, and I don't know why I didn't say it was him. In fact, I didn't know if it really was him. But I had to start somewhere. I went to Jim again. He knew about Cynthia and didn't ask questions. In fact, he seemed to wholeheartedly approve of what I was doing, even if he needs to stay in Los Angeles for his own work. That's fine. I want to do this myself anyway. All signs pointed to... Ohio? Yeah, sure enough, Ohio. Land of, bad highways and astronauts. There was something else Jim warned me about, a strange spike at some Nowheresville town. Some rift between universes, maybe? It's unclear. Things to worry about another time. The truth is, there's no such thing as a duplicate. No man, not even a, you from a parallel universe is really the same as another. Think if you knew someone else who made the exact same choice as you did. You still wouldn't be the literal same person. You wouldn't share a brain. How many thoughts appear from the void? Someone said something and you spiral, thinking over a meaningless insult they've already forgotten. You drive through the night, and then at 1 a.m., your mind tells you to drive off the mountain road into the open air, But you don't. Not this time. The darkest part of the soul wants you to choose self-destruction. We didn't make the same choices, not at all. This guy was a black hat. I wasn't exactly a white hat. Not anymore. I put my white hat back on when the work was done. It's what I told myself at night, anyway. I'll skip the travel time control. I was a man on a mission. The town Jim's info led me to was called Fairground. It didn't have a fairground, but it used to, apparently. Now it was mostly office buildings. And Sean, the evil Sean, that's what I call him, was working in one of them. Some tiny little corporate nothing job for a company that designed napkins, of all things. None of it mattered. I stepped into the lobby of the office building. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't tiny either. Maybe 10 or 12 stories. The receptionist in front saw me and did a double take. No surprise, I suppose. I must have reminded her of someone she knew. Hi, my name is Sean Russo. No reason to hide my identity. I wanted him to know I was here, after all. I'm looking for a relative of mine who works here. I paused. I didn't know the name he was going by. I decided to just press ahead anyway. I can tell you've met him. Yeah, I look just like him. Anyway, if you can just let him know I'm here, I'd be happy to wait. The receptionist had recovered her surprise, nodded at me and said, I'd be happy to let Mr. Carafa know. Carafa. My grandmother's maiden name. I nodded and smiled. Thank you. I sat in a chair in the lobby. It occurred to me that she hadn't asked me to confirm if I knew Evil Sean's name. Well, maybe Evil Sean had told her to expect me to call on him one day. Again, it didn't matter. I wanted to see him. If he was prepared for me coming, well, I was prepared for him too. The receptionist motioned me over to her desk. Mr. Carafa is ready to see you now. He's on the 6th floor. You'll find his office at the end of the hall. I thanked her again and made my way over to the elevator, where I took stock of my preparations. I wasn't afraid of Evil Sean, or not anymore. I had the Ring of Dispel. Evil Sean had his taken from him. I knew how he was probably thinking. He didn't think I'd be willing to kill. But if that is what he thinks, he's only half right. I mean, I needed to confirm if he was the one who killed Cynthia, but my mind was made up. If he did kill Cynthia, well, my gun was loaded. I'd killed before. To kill a man such as him, you need to make your peace with such things. He'd kill more than I ever would. He needed to be made to pay. I'd make him pay. The elevator doors opened and I walked out. The hallway in front of me was surprisingly long, with lots of doors on either side. There were no names on the doors, but the receptionist had said he was at the other end of the hall. I started walking. There was an odd sameness to the hallway. Lines of wooden doors, lime green walls, and bland gray carpeted floors. Corporate hell. Sisyphus hauling TPS reports. Above me were blaring fluorescent lights that cast the whole place in a vaguely sickly pallor. Every now and then one flickered. The sound did nothing to mark the time. I rehearsed in my mind what I was going to do when I reached Evil Sean. But the truth is, I barely knew. Interrogate him. Get some answers. And when I knew the truth, act. Onward I walked. On my right, there was a hallway water cooler, half filled. I passed by it. On and on, I walked. Fluorescent lights blaring down on me. I reached the end of the hallway, but there was actually a turn to the left where the hallway continued. Did she mean that his office was here? Or at the very end of the hallway past the turn? Experimentally, I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked louder and yelled, "Hey, I'm here." Nothing. He must be in the office at the very end of the hall, past the turn. Well, no matter. I kept walking. And walking. In the hallway to the right side, there was a water cooler, half filled. Exactly half. Just like the other one. I turned around. I walked over to the corner I had just turned and peeked around it. There was no elevator at the end of the hall. On the right side, there was a water cooler, half filled. I thought it through rationally, Pinkerton training and all, but what I kept coming back to was that this should not be possible. Magic didn't. It couldn't work on me. I wore the Ring of Dispel. And yet, the only thing that could make sense of this was magic. Right? And there were other things. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but I was, calm. Too calm. Unnaturally calm. I don't think I would have panicked anyway. I've been trained enough not to. But I was too detached, like I was watching all of this happen to someone else. Poor schmuck, trapped in this office building. Hell, wonder what'll happen to him. Think he'll get out? At least there was water. That gave me about a month before I starved to death, give or take. Maybe some of the rooms had food? What was there left for me to do? I mean, I kept walking. I explored the rooms as I went. Most of them were typical offices. A chair, a computer that wasn't connected to the internet. I tried dialing the phone. Dead tone on the line was exactly 1 octave lower than the light's buzz. One room had a giant photocopier with attached printer. I wonder what it was used for. I walked and walked and walked and walked. Every few, hours? Or is it minutes? Days? I took a drink from the water cooler. My thinking was sluggish and got more so as I walked. Hallway after hallway, room after room, I checked my options. Maybe this computer would do something. Maybe this phone would connect somewhere. I started making a count. Every 5 doors, there was a big room full of cubicles with old-fashioned 90s-era desktop computers hooked up. Of course, none of them could access the internet. Separate from the office rooms. Every 15 rooms there was a giant photocopier just sitting there alone. Exactly halfway down each hallway, which was also always 20 rooms, 10 on each side, there was that half-full water cooler. Fluorescent lights flickered as I walked down the hall. I counted those too. 12 lights in every hall. Every 7th light flickered. Sometimes. Once, to my great surprise, I found a break room. Had a whiteboard, some chairs, and, unbelievably, a vending machine, advertising snacks and candy for $1 each. Crap. I hadn't brought any coins with me. I kept walking. Another hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered as I walked. I ignored it. I was sure the handyman would come in soon. There was a photocopier. I looked at it more closely. It was Orsanto brand. For some reason, this felt strange. I didn't know why. I kept walking. A vending machine. I checked it out. Oh yeah, no coins. What now? Well, nothing to do but walk. My mouth was dry. My legs felt like lead. I stood and thought. Why was I here again? I think I was going to meet someone. But who? I didn't know. But they were probably in this office building. I should keep walking. I started walking again, then stopped. Something was nagging at me. Thinking was hard, and walking seemed like the better idea. Actually, was starting to feel like sitting would be even better than walking. Why was I walking again? Was I supposed to be meeting someone? Then it was obvious to me. Of course I knew why I was here. I worked here. Why else would I be in an office? I almost laughed in relief. Everything made sense now. Obviously, I had to get back to my cubicle. In the hall of cubicles, there was a line of lockers on the wall, probably for the employees to store their lunch. Checked the locker. Bob's. A moldy, rotting sandwich was in there, dead flies around it. I frowned. I couldn't eat this. This sandwich was Bob's. He'd be annoyed if I just ate his lunch. I'd have to find something else. Bob really should clean his locker. Just disgusting. I should make a complaint. With some effort, I started making my way over to the cubicles. I wasn't sure what the boss wanted from me, but there were surely instructions on the computer, right? One thought kept nagging at me, though. Who was my boss again? I wanted to brush it aside, but I had a nagging sense this was important. And another thing. What was I working for? Did I have a wife? Children? A wife. This word, this idea, started to break me out of my haze, because suddenly, through the miasma of confusion and complacency, I felt a powerful stab of grief and anger. No, not anger. Something stronger. Hatred. Rage. Unbidden, a quote came to mind. I had a vague idea the quote was famous, but couldn't place its source. Old. Ancient. Older than this building would ever be. Rage. Sing, goddess. Achilles' rage, black and murderous. Something was getting through. That rage and that grief. Where did it come from? Like water breaking through a dam, memories started flooding through. A trickle at first, then a steady flow, and then finally, with a mighty crash, the dam broke down. Who was my wife? I didn't have one. She was dead. What happened to her? She didn't just die. It was murder. Murder! Someone killed her, and it was my fault. This stopped me short for a moment. Why did I think it was my fault? I pushed that aside, desperate to finish this train of thought. Someone killed her. But who? Who killed her? I didn't know, but I had a lead. The doppelganger. My boss. No, he wasn't my boss. He was the doppelganger. The dam broke. The memories came flooding back. I was no less tired, and my energy reserves were still dangerously low, but I was alert and myself again. Why? I think it was the rage. Yes, it was powerful, intoxicating, like a drug coursing through me, waking me up, driving me forward. Every time I started to fall under the strange spell of the building, I thought of my rage, my desire for vengeance, my grief at Cynthia's death and Violet's departure. It wasn't a good feeling, but it focused me. It drove me forward. I needed to find Evil Sean, and I needed to find out the truth, and if he truly did it, I had to kill him. This was the way forward. The only way forward. But my problems hadn't been solved. I still needed to figure out what was going on and address the serious elephant in the room. How was I affected at all if I was wearing the Ring of Dispel? I thought it over. The ring was an incredibly powerful artifact. It allowed me to resist beings and see through enchantments strong enough to control entire armies of people. But it wasn't entirely infallible. If you knew how it worked, you could work around it. Morgana had held the ring for centuries, and while she wasn't able to completely discount its effects, she still managed to put some sort of spell on me despite its presence. Evil Sean hadn't had his own ring as long as Morgana, but he had held on to it for a few decades, and with the resources of the Grand Masons behind him, he probably got to know its ins and outs pretty well. It isn't entirely inconceivable he could have figured out some of the same sorts of tricky workarounds Morgana had. I felt like I was on the verge of figuring out something important, because here's the thing about the ring. You can work around it if you know it exists, but you can't ignore it. It's always affecting something. This gave me an idea, a crazy idea, maybe even a suicidal idea. But can you call it suicide when you're dead if you do nothing? I had nothing left to lose. For the first time I could remember, in the middle of a mission, I took off the Ring of Dispel. At once the room dissolved around me into inky blackness, and I fell into a dark abyss, not knowing where I'd land. Sean Russo, signing off. For now.
Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This episode was written by Anthony Marchetta and is performed by the same. Ben Wheeler edits, directs, produces, and herds cats. Kid Dickerson performs our audio editing. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @PinkertonsGhosts, email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.